What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Ben and I'm glad to have you. Today I want to talk about how streamers are actively losing big A-list filmmakers like Margot Robbie and Jon Watts, and how this has slowly been happening across the years with these filmmakers actively leaving these streamers and refusing to work for them, and then actively talking shit about these streamers in interviews. Normal people like us get to shit on their old employers only through Glassdoor and to our friends, but these celebrities get to talk shit about them to Variety and Deadline. Fucking power move. Wild too, because there's so few studios to work with nowadays, but I love that they don't give a fuck. So I wanted to talk about how these streamers got these big names to begin with, and then go into how the tides have slowly shifted, and now these big directors and producers are now openly criticizing them and refusing to work with them. And then I want to talk about how streamers should continue going forward now that they can't attract big A-list talent. So let's dive in. Back in the day, directors were stuck in the studio system. Was it great? Not at all. There were a lot of issues with it. There's always been a lot of issues with it, but it was the only thing they had available to them. But it was especially bad during the rise of the streamers. Streamers really came up during the perfect time to attract A-list talent, because streamers came up during the rise of IP, where studios were just searching for projects that were all linked to IP, at least in my opinion. IP was always big, right? But around 2012, things started to shift with the Avengers coming out, and it was a massive success, and then everyone wanted to have a cinematic universe. Everything that was made slowly had to be based off of something that has already been created before just to get greenlit. And in 2012, in my opinion at least, that's when things started to shift in the studio system. It wasn't a total shift, but it still was a start to the shift. Every film coming out slowly became more IP driven, and we started to have more IP driven films. We started to have a lot of legacy sequels where they would bring back original cast members like Star Wars or Blade Runner. Scream 5 actually titled it a requel, right? Because it was a kind of reboot, but it was also a sequel.
But doing it as a requel. You can't just reboot a franchise from scratch anymore. The fans won't stand for it.
We had a whole bunch of reboots and sequels and requels. Everything had to be driven by IP, and that meant less original films overall. These big filmmakers had passion projects they really wanted to do, and they just didn't want to do an IP driven film. They wanted to do an original film, and the studio system didn't want to take a risk like that, especially in this new IP driven world. And I think that's where streamers started to take notice. Streamers offered directors a chance to make their passion projects and give them a fuck ton of money for doing so, and that's what attracted a lot of these directors away from these legacy studios. Make the film you want to make, you don't have to deal with studio politics like who to market it to or who is the movie for. No stupid shit like that. So directors flocked to Netflix and then later other companies like Apple. And I get it. You get paid a shit ton of money. You do what you love. You get to make what you wanted to make in the first place. They did not sell out by any means. I'm not accusing them of doing that. But that still came at a cost. While directors were happy to make the films they wanted to make, they unfortunately lost out on a lot of benefits that these studios were giving them, like marketing campaigns and making their films feel more like events instead of just dumping them on their platform one weekend and then forgetting about them. And most importantly, under the studio system, their films were given a theatrical release where they were not given a theatrical release under the streaming model. And now that they've realized this, they have begun to turn their backs on streamers and have openly voiced their opinions against them. Let's just recap a few of these from this year alone. This year we had the remake of Roadhouse come out, where Doug Liman, the director, was so upset with Amazon about Roadhouse going straight to streaming that he boycotted the entire premiere. To give Amazon the benefit of the doubt, which I don't like giving them the benefit of the doubt because they are a terrible company, but giving them the benefit of the doubt, Roadhouse was originally going to be made for MGM, and then Amazon came in and bought MGM. So it's not like Amazon did a deal with Doug Liman and then they did a rug pull, but I get it. He set out to make a movie based on the terms that were laid out, and he delivered that movie based on the terms that were laid out, and then they changed them. Also, I think Roadhouse would have killed in a theater. Like, it makes sense to put that movie in a theater, right? Like, yeah, it's a smaller film, it's not a big blockbuster film, but it's based on known IP in a world where fucking everything has to be IP. I love also being in a theater and the crazy fights are happening, or there's a lot of violence and it's like kind of gratuitous violence, right? And you see bones breaking and snapping and you kind of hear the audience go like, ooh, and like, oh. Love that experience. Like, that is what the theater is for, and Roadhouse had a ton of those moments. But what do I know, right? I'm talking out of my ass. Everyone on here talks out of their ass, that's a fact. And then just last month, Netflix lost out on a new film, Wuthering Heights, starring Margot Robbie, who is also serving as a producer, and is going to be directed by Emerald Fennell, who did Saltburn and Promising Young Woman. Netflix reportedly put out a bid for $150 million for this movie. However, Margot Robbie decided to turn them down, and instead they went with Warner Brothers, who only offered them an $80 million deal. But Warner's deal included a wide theatrical release and a full marketing campaign, something that Netflix is incredibly against, so Margot and Emerald went with Warner's deal instead. Netflix has always been against wide theatrical releases for their films, and they're also against marketing their films because you never hear when their fucking films drop. And I'm sure the CEO of Netflix's words about how he thought Barbie would have been just as big if it debuted on Netflix rubbed Margot Robbie the wrong way. It's one thing just talking out of your ass, right? But it's another thing just to fucking lie and know you're lying. Like, no one gives two shits about most Netflix movies, right? No one is actively dressing up to watch a Netflix movie. No one is having a cultural phenomenon about a Netflix movie. The fucking audacity of Netflix right now. Like, insane, mind-blowing. I don't get it, but you know what? I'm not surrounded by yes men and I don't have $1 billion fucking dollars, so maybe I'll never forget it. So Margot Robbie and Emerald Fennell turned down Netflix. They turned down nearly double of what Netflix was offering them because they wanted that theatrical release, and I'm sure they're going to get an insane back-end deal if the film is profitable, but they are taking a risk, right? They are getting less money up front, but they are getting a full theatrical release, which is what they really wanted. And I'm sure there's other factors in play that we don't know about, right? Like, Margot Robbie worked as a producer on Barbie, which is distributed by Warner Brothers, so she's familiar with the studio and she knows how to work with them. But also, it is wild that she's choosing to work with David Zaslav again, who has royally fucked over filmmakers and gone back on his word. Like, we had Coyote vs. Acme that was fully shelved after it was a fully completed movie, and then it was shelved for tax purposes. Or we had Batgirl, which was filmed, it wasn't completed, but it was filmed, and then that was shelved for tax purposes. Or just recently, we had Clint Eastwood, who got massively fucked over when he made Juror Number 2, and that only got a limited theatrical release despite critical acclaim, and now they're doing an awards campaign for that movie. But who am I to question their choices, right? Like, I'm talking out of my ass, right? That is what I do on this channel. Who am I to question the business minds behind the $200 million courtroom drama that was Joker 2? And then just a couple of weeks ago, we had Jon Watts openly say that he does not trust Apple as a creative partner. Jon Watts, mainly known for directing the latest Spider-Man films and also directing the latest Star Wars show Skeleton Crew, recently stated that he was going to be writing a sequel for his Apple movie Wolves, which premiered this year. Wolves, I don't know actually how to pronounce it. I didn't see it. I don't know if they clarified it in the movie, but I'm also really curious as to what the sequel to Wolves or Wolves would have been called, right? Wolves, more Wolves, Wolves 2, this time more Wolves. Like, I don't know. It's a weird fucking title. But once Wolves did not get the theatrical release that Jon Watts was initially promised, he returned all of his sequel money and flat out told everyone that they suck as employers. And this is happening at an accelerating rate, and that's just this year alone. I know other filmmakers have openly stated that they have been unhappy with streamers. Take for instance Mike Flanagan, who worked with Netflix quite a bit. That's like kind of how he became a household name. He made The Haunting series, he made Midnight Mass, he directed Gerald's Game, and many other projects. Mike Flanagan has openly stated that he was unhappy with Netflix not budging on their ways. He wanted Midnight Mass to have a weekly release, and Netflix denied him that. Now, this is all still recent. This is all still developing. There are still directors who like working for streamers. Take David Fincher, for instance. Major powerhouse director. He did Mindhunter and Mank for Netflix, and now he is doing a remake of Squid Game. But personally, I think this is just the start of directors abandoning streamers. Most directors love theatrical releases. They just do. That's where they fell in love with movies, that's where they fell in love with cinema, but I also get why streamers want to avoid a theatrical release with some movies. Theatrical is a big risk. It's very expensive. There's a lot of marketing costs involved. There's a lot of distribution costs involved. There's competition on opening weekends. Sometimes you can make a great movie and it still won't work out. I get it. But I do feel like big A-list talent will slowly stop working with streamers in favor of theatrical releases, and I think this is where streamers should pivot. Some of these movies on streaming never made sense to begin with. You're not making money on a $300 million movie that goes straight to streaming. Like, you're not making money off of The Gray Man or The Electric State or Six Underground. There's no way these movies made any type of money. So I think Netflix and streamers alike have a great opportunity to take their original film model that they have and use it to foster up-and-coming talent. It's very hard these days for new directors and new writers to come up in this new IP-driven era where every film costs a shit ton of money and there's a lot of high stakes on these films. But I do think Netflix and Apple and other streamers alike should invest in these up-and-coming filmmakers. They already make movies every single week, so instead of blowing money on this like A-list talent that will openly talk shit about them later, why not give these up-and-comers a shot? Most streaming movies sound great on paper, and then in execution they are not great, even with these big filmmakers attached. So why not take a chance on the little guy? Which I know is asking quite a bit in today's world, but I think it's a chance worth taking. Look, I'm not gonna knock streaming 100%, right? It has its place. I love theaters. I think every movie should be released in a theater. I prefer to see my movies in theaters, but I do recognize that some movies will perform better and will find the right audience in a streaming world. Some movies I feel like are made for theaters, while some I think are made for streaming. I see an argument for both, but I do think that both of them can coexist. I think there needs to be more thought on which films should go theatrical and which films should go straight to streaming. What works best not only for the film and the audience that it's intended for, but also the talent behind the film. It's all hard, they're gonna make mistakes, not every studio is bad, not every director is right either, but things are shifting, and I think these streaming companies need to shift as well. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think this has just been a bad year and streaming will continue to attract these big directors and big talent due to the money that they have and the less politics that they offer? Or do you guys think the tides are turning and less big filmmakers will work with these streamers as the years go on? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you so fucking much. It is so cool that you decided to watch this. I decided to make these videos about half a year ago, and boy were those first ones rough. Like, they were not good. I do not advise that you go watch them, but I'm glad I've gotten better. At least I hope I've gotten better, and I hope I've given you some form of entertainment. I truly appreciate every view, every like, every comment, every subscribe, everything. I'm very happy when these videos do well. I probably shouldn't tie these videos to my mental health, but I do. But thank you so much. If you enjoyed what I said, please like, comment, and subscribe. I put out new videos every single week detailing the film and TV industry and the film and TV business. So if you like this video, I got plenty of others, and I got plenty of others on the way. So if you like that, please join me, and if you join me, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.